Welcome to the Customer Management IQ video interview series. I'm your host, Corey Bennett, and today we are on site at the 12th Annual Call Center Week in Las Vegas. Joining me right now is Scott Swift, the Vice President of Customer Information at Hunter Douglas. Scott is one of our featured keynote speakers. He's actually doing the closing keynote this afternoon, and his presentation is titled The Fine Art of Storytelling, a Key Component of World-Class Customer Service. Scott, thanks so much for being here.
Nice to be here, Corey. Thanks.
So this concept of storytelling, how does storytelling actually fit into customer service? How do you translate consumer interactions into personal narrative?
Well, first off, what is storytelling? Storytelling is making our points. It's almost as if we're framing the points we're trying to make in customer service. For example, we swim in data. We talk about the amount of contacts we get in a month and all the data that surrounds that. Yeah. How do we make that real? How do we make that tangible? And stories can do that. Not just simply stories about what's going on inside the contact center, but examples of what we're doing in our business to make us more effective.
Yeah. So where is that balance, though, between, because you definitely need analytics. So where's that balance between analytics and anecdotes?
Well, I think the ratio is 1-to-1. I think if you're going to talk about data and put data, for example, on a PowerPoint screen, are we after we're showing the data, are we explaining what that means? And then maybe moving it over to a narrative, to a story, to an example, and explaining, here's the data, let me tell you what that means. And then maybe even taking the next step. Based on that and what that really means to us, here's what we're doing as a result of it. So it's almost wrapping the story around every point we're trying to make in terms of the data or what we're doing for a living in customer service.
At Hunter Douglas, how do you, once you have those narrative arcs, how do you impart that to frontline staff? What are some of your practices at Hunter Douglas?
Well, that's a good point. There's two ways. One, frontline staff. Let's say I want to create an initiative this year to create focus on looking for opportunities in the contact center. When I'm engaging a consumer on the phone, how do I create these opportunities? Maybe I start with a story. Maybe I say something similar to, my mother's having lunch in Chicago. She eats in an outdoor cafe. Yeah. She loves lemons. She orders iced tea with lemons. The waiter comes by, puts the iced teas down and says, "I'm sorry, we're all out of lemons," and walks away. Now let's imagine that it's an outdoor cafe. She looks over the street. She sees a fruit stand. In the middle of the fruit stand is a big pile of lemons. Now that's an opportunity missed. Now what if I'm saying this to my staff and saying, now what if that waiter would have set the iced teas down, said, "I'm sorry, we're all out of lemons," hopped the fence, run across the street, pulled out $1, bought some lemons, come back to the table and cut them fresh at the table. What kind of story would that be? So that's great customer service. So now if I start with that, then I can follow with my points in management. That is to my staff. Can we be more focused? Can we not miss the opportunities in customer service? So I'm grounding them. I'm almost setting an anchor of my point in the story to then make my point in behavioral and how I manage and what we need in the contact center.
And so that's with frontline staff. How do you use stories and narratives between managers internally?
Between managers or even upstream, more on the business side. Obviously, an iced tea story might not float up to the senior management team.
I hope that's your actual mother, too.
It is actually my mother.
Terrific.
Let's take, for example, maybe using a business story. If I say to you that Porsche, for example, in Germany, if you buy a Porsche in Germany, they offer free park and wash at all the major airports in Germany. Now that's something that Porsche does. They make an arrangement with Avis, so as a consumer you just simply drop your Porsche off. Avis will take it, they'll park it, they'll clean it, and when you come back from your trip you'll have it. So if Porsche's doing that, what can we do in our business? Or maybe I'm sharing that example of what Porsche does. They're adding value to a high value brand. It's not costing them a lot of money. Therefore, senior management or fellow management, here's what I want us to do. Or here's what we're doing as a result of this. So it almost legitimizes, for example, by telling a story, using a concrete example, and then people have the picture, okay, then they can move from point A to B to C.
So if you had to categorize the type of story that you just gave an example of, how would you categorize that so someone could put it into kind of a general best practices as for the types of narratives they should be looking to communicate ideas to senior management?
Well, I would categorize it maybe as an example.
Okay.
Let's take PowerPoint, for example. We're all in meetings. We all use PowerPoint. You put a lot of data on the slide. Here's the data. Now, let me tell you what this data means, and let me give you an example from this data. That connects, in my mind, the dots, A to B to C. So it's using as many business examples as we can internally to say, we all know in customer service that we protect the brand and we're the safety net. How do we convey that, both downstream and upstream, and to our fellow management? And that is through examples. Tangible examples. Mrs. Smith, she defected from our brand, and here's why. and we have thousands of Mrs. Smiths right now, and we can show you the data. On the other side, we're keeping Mrs. Jones because we did A, B, and C, and we track that data, and we're going to continue to track that data so we can continue to keep consumers.
So it all sounds well and good. How do you tie the effective storytelling on financial improvements, on ROI? How do you tie those two together?
Well, it's a tough thing to do, obviously. I think it's long-term.
Okay.
I think if we, year after year of doing this, if senior management, for example, truly understands and put a high value on customer service, I believe it's because not only there's a culture there, but there's individuals or a key individual that is able to convey exactly what all the data means and why we do what we do in customer service. I think the biggest thing is if your budget gets approved without a lot of challenges year in year and year, that's a quantifiable way.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate it, Scott. This has been some good insight, and thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks for your time, Corey.
Yeah. And to our viewers out there, you can check out more of our videos at customermanagementiq.com. Once again, I'm your host, Corey Bennett. Until next time, thanks for watching.